The future used to look great. Back in 1985, when the movie Back to the Future came out, we were enthused, we were excited that we're going to have hoverboards, we're going to have amazing, amazing technological innovations that we're all going to love. And that was great. I myself was very much into technology, and I even had more hair than today. Apart from coding computers, for some strange reason, I ended up studying law. And afterwards, I worked for different governments, different institutions, and politics. And over these years, I've observed hundreds of companies. I've worked with hundreds of companies to advise them and look for ways they can be more successful, but more importantly, for ways they can be more strategic. And thinking about technology today, I've realized that it's radically different than the way it was 20 or 30 years ago. And I'll give you 3 reasons why I think technology as such is not what it used to be. The first one is the speed of the spread of technology. When Sony's Walkman came out, it took about 15 to 20 years to become a globally successful product. On the other hand, if you take Spotify, which is this amazing music live stream or streaming service, it took them about 8 years to get 100 million users across the world. The second reason why it's different today is the depth at which technology affects us. And you see that, according to some statistic, 1 out of 10 American adults is using a smartphone while having sex. Now, we know that 85% of statistics are made up. But it still kind of proves the point that this is a very, very important, has a very intimate effect on our everyday lives. And then the third one is the ease of use. We know babies who can use an iPad even before they can talk. Technology is so accessible, so easy to use, which is a great thing. At the same time, it just lowers the barrier to entry. So for these 3 reasons, I have come to realize that there are social side effects of technological innovation, very significant, important social side effects. Who among you has used Airbnb in the past year? Hands up. Whoa, impressive. We love Airbnb, don't we? It's a great company, great service, very interesting what they have to offer. But then if you happen to be living in Barcelona, you may have seen news like that, where there are protests against the company because it disrupts local communities, because it has an impact on residents in everyday buildings. So there is a certain effect on the society as a result of technology. Or if we think about self-driving cars, Google, Uber, many other companies are about to roll these out in the next couple of years. And it's amazing that on one hand, they're going to save 30,000, maybe even more lives. It's fantastic. On the other hand, it's pretty likely they're going to induce unemployment for millions of people who are living from driving trucks or cars or other vehicles. So you might be thinking, fine, that's all great, but isn't it the job of governments, regulators, politicians to address this? Shouldn't they be the ones who come and deal with these side effects, whether through laws, taxation, or other means? And I think that it's actually the companies themselves who have a good reason to address these. And you might be wondering, yeah, sure, why should a company care about these side effects? I think essentially there are 2 reasons. One is a moral argument, and the other one is a well-understood business argument. The moral argument is the way we look at ourselves as good people, that we are saving energy, that we turn off the tap when we are brushing our teeth, that we recycle, that we send a card on Mother's Day. And companies, value-driven companies, do the same. Look at IKEA, for instance, when they would not be sourcing their wood from endangered Brazilian rainforests, or they would engage the local communities when they open a new shop in the outskirts of Sofia. So companies are generally referred to as good corporate citizens when their moral, value-driven judgment is appreciated. But then let's look at the one understood business argument. And that business argument can be summed up with the following phrase that is often quoted in the public affairs on the lobbying world, is that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. If you're not engaged in a conversation, if you're not proactively trying to address an issue, sooner or later it's going to bite you. Sooner or later there's going to be some sort of backlash, whether it's protest, whether it's laws, whether it's taxes, but it's going to hurt you. You need to proactively engage. And then that's all fine and good, but what, or rather when can a company deal with such an issue? And if you think about startups, what's the number one concern of a startup? It's to grow. It's to get customers, to get funding, to make sure their supply chain works smoothly. It's not about the social concern, at least for most technology-driven startups. So when a bunch of college kids are out there and they are doing an amazing job, it's not their primary consideration. But when a company, especially a tech company, is scaling up, it's growing, there is a phase in the growth phase when they have millions of users or customers, they are present in various countries, they are starting to affect people's lives. That's probably the point when they need to start considering, fine, what is the impact of what we do? Do we need to address it in one way or another? And if we accept the idea that they should, we need to look at what can a company actually do about it. And I think, by and large, there are three things that they can do. The first one is to show empathy and name the problem. Simply say, well, we have an issue here. And all of you would be aware of the heat and criticism that Facebook got after last year's elections. And not only that, not only their platform being used to spread fake news, but also the platform being used for purposes which were not meant to be used for, whether it's live streaming, bullying, or even suicide, and various other backlashes. And a couple of weeks ago, Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg, he came out with a 6,000-word letter, really, really long memo, trying to address these issues. And some people criticize him for being too little and too late, but still the idea of saying, hey, we have an issue here, whether it's local journalism, whether, again, the negative ways of a tech innovation being used, we need to address it in one way or another. So that's probably the first one, showing empathy, naming the problem. The second one is compromising on the short term to gain on the long term, to be more strategic in the mindset. And a very simple, perhaps even simplistic example for that is if we look at Apple and iPhone and various devices and the way they have constructed an operating system to be used in cars. Now, when you're using your phone in a car through this system, it doesn't allow you to send a text message while you're driving. And probably most of you would say, yeah, that's right. Because your freedom to use the device and the imperative to save your life and keep you safe are connected. That you need to be limited in some sense for a greater purpose, for a more important value than your freedom to use the gadget at any point in time. So that's a short-term limitation for something more important. The third one is to sponsor third-party programs. Perhaps when self-driving cars are becoming a reality, perhaps helping organizations, educational funds, or other initiatives to train those who are drivers into a new job and support those. Not necessarily a company running those, but supporting those because of this responsibility that we've discussed. So with that in mind, there's just so much innovation coming out. And you will be working in companies, and you will be founding companies, maybe robotics, maybe artificial intelligence, maybe biotechnology, whatever it may be. And chances are that those companies will have social impacts. And I urge you, and I encourage you to look at those, whether for the moral argument, whether for the business argument, whether for a third one that I may have not mentioned. I encourage you to do that, because we all would like to be living in a future that Marty McFly could come back to. Thank you.